Imagine being in a 7.0 magnitude earthquake. Your floor shakes, windows shatter, and every alarm in your home screams. But what if a nation could survive it almost unscathed? In this video, we explore Taiwan's incredible story of survival, preparation, and lessons from the past, perfect for English learners to understand real-life events and improve their skills. It was late December, 2025. High above the busy streets of Taipei, a family lived in a tall apartment building. Far below, the city lights glowed softly, and the sounds of traffic felt distant and calm. Inside the apartment, everything felt peaceful. The family was preparing for sleep, wrapped in warmth and comfort, believing they were safe. Then, something changed. At first, it was just a quiet, low sound. A deep rumble. So soft that it was easy to ignore. But within seconds, the sound grew stronger, louder, deeper, and frightening. The floor began to shake. The walls trembled. The entire building started to sway from side to side, as if it were floating on waves. Objects flew from shelves and smashed onto the floor. Glass windows cracked, then exploded into sharp, echoing sounds. At the same moment, every phone in the apartment lit up and screamed with emergency alerts. A powerful earthquake, magnitude 7.0, had struck. Fear filled the room. The world felt unstable, twisting and moving around them. For those terrifying moments, nothing felt solid or certain. But soon, something surprising happened. As news reports began to come in, people noticed something strange. For an earthquake this strong, where was the massive destruction? Where were the images of collapsed cities, broken highways, and endless ruins? This was not what many people expected from such a powerful natural disaster. It became clear that Taiwan had not survived by luck alone. This calm after the shock told a deeper story. A story of preparation, strong building design, and lessons learned from painful disasters in the past. Over many years, Taiwan had studied its tragedies, improved its safety systems, and changed the way it built its cities. This earthquake was not just a moment of fear, it was proof of resilience. It showed how a nation can learn, adapt, and stand strong, even when the ground itself begins to move. Slowly, the violent shaking began to weaken. The frightening roar of the earthquake faded, and an unnatural silence spread across the city. For a moment, Taipei felt frozen. Then, far away, the sound of sirens began to rise, growing louder with each passing second. The ground had stopped moving. The immediate danger seemed over. Across the city, people paused and took deep, shaky breaths. Hearts were still pounding. Hands were trembling. But the silence that followed did not bring peace. Instead, it carried fear. Everyone wondered the same thing: what would morning reveal? When the sun rose, what damage would it show? What had changed while the city slept? The first shock, the first 60 minutes. The first hour after the earthquake was strange and confusing. It began with silence, then quickly turned into non-stop activity. Mr. Chen was riding a high-speed train when the earthquake struck. The train shook violently, but its safety system reacted immediately and brought it to a complete stop. Inside the train cars, scared passengers grabbed their seats and held on tightly. The train stood still in the middle of nowhere, far from any station. There was no internet signal. People could not check the news or contact their families. Mr. Chen looked around at the anxious faces and felt completely powerless. At the same time, Mrs. Lin and her 2 young children were outside in a park. They had rushed out so quickly that they were still wearing their night clothes. Around them, many other families sat on the ground together. The night air was cold, but fear was stronger than the cold. Mrs. Lin kept checking her phone, trying again and again to call her husband. Information spread quickly, but not all of it was true. Some people whispered rumors. One person said a bridge had collapsed. Another said the city was safe and everything was under control. No one knew what to believe. Inside the city's emergency center, Miss Chang faced the chaos head-on. Her phone never stopped ringing. Calls came in one after another. Power failures in one neighborhood. A small fire in another. People trapped inside elevators, waiting for help. She listened, took notes, and sent teams where they were needed most. The city was quiet on the outside, but inside, everything was moving fast. Many of the emergency calls were not about injuries or fires. They were from people simply asking for news. Their voices shook with fear and confusion. Communication lines were almost completely full, which slowed everything down and made it hard to reach help. On large screens across the city, social media filled with videos. Lamps swung back and forth. Water spilled out of bathtubs. Buildings shook like paper. These clips showed how powerful the earthquake was. But they also spread false information. Rumors moved faster than facts, making people even more afraid. The city was connected by invisible lines of fear and hope. People used every method they could to contact family and friends. Messages were sent again and again. Calls failed. With the networks overloaded, many people felt cut off and alone, trapped with their worries. The greatest fear was not knowing the truth. How serious was the damage? Were buildings safe? This lack of clear information created deep anxiety across the city. While streets were filled with worry, a small group of scientists worked quietly far away from the panic. Inside their laboratories, seismologists watched screens covered with moving lines and numbers. They were tracking the smaller earthquakes that followed the main one, aftershocks. Most people feared falling buildings. But the scientists noticed something different. The aftershock pattern was unusual. It did not look normal. It suggested a new and hidden risk, something that had not appeared yet. A city holds its breath. As the long night continued, Taiwan faced the full impact of the earthquake. Power went out in many neighborhoods. Important systems, including parts of the metro and high-speed rail, shut down automatically. This caused delays and frustration, but it also prevented serious accidents. Water systems were checked quickly. Pipes, tanks, and treatment plants were inspected for damage. Roads, bridges, and airports also needed immediate safety checks before anyone could use them again. Emergency services moved fast. Teams from both central and local governments began working together. While the city waited in darkness, people knew one thing for sure: Taiwan was responding, step by step, to face the crisis. Rescue teams moved quickly into action. Firefighters, police officers, and search groups spread out across the city to look for anyone who might be trapped. They checked hospitals, schools, and large apartment buildings first, places where people were most likely to be. Over the years, Taiwan has trained thousands of disaster volunteers. These volunteers knew exactly what to do in the first critical moments, even before professional rescue teams arrived. They gave first aid, helped neighbors, and shared important information. Their calm and organized actions played a vital role in protecting the community. This fast and coordinated response did not happen by accident. Taiwan had learned painful lessons from the past, especially from the devastating 1999 Chi earthquake, which took more than 2,000 lives. That tragedy changed the nation forever. Stronger building laws were created. Emergency training improved. Advanced earthquake monitoring systems were installed. Now, years later, those lessons were saving lives and guiding every step of the response. When morning finally arrived, the news surprised many people. The number of injured was far lower than expected. After such a powerful earthquake, it felt almost like a miracle. But the danger was not completely over. On the northeast coast, engineers carefully inspected a large bridge. At first glance, it looked fine. Then they discovered a thin crack in one of the main support pillars. It seemed small, almost harmless. But the engineers knew better. That tiny fracture was serious and could grow worse if ignored. As daylight spread across Taiwan, the full story of the earthquake became clear. In Taipei, many modern skyscrapers were still standing strong. Most had only minor damage, small cracks in walls or broken windows. These buildings proved that smart design and strict building rules worked. Nearby, however, older low-rise buildings told a different story. Some walls had cracked deeply. Others leaned slightly forward, weakened by time and outdated construction. The contrast was clear: preparation mattered. The earthquake had tested the nation, and Taiwan had stood firm. Some older buildings were badly damaged. In a few places, the ground floors had collapsed, making the structures extremely unsafe. Inside these homes, staircases were broken or missing. This damage clearly showed the difference between how new and old buildings survived the earthquake. It also revealed the serious danger faced by people living in older neighborhoods. Engineering teams moved in quickly to assess the damage. They carefully examined buildings across the city. The engineers explained that newer buildings followed strict safety rules. These rules were strengthened after past disasters, especially the deadly 1999 earthquake. Because of these improvements, modern buildings were better prepared to handle strong shaking. The safety rules were no longer just words on paper, they were visible in real life. Older buildings, however, were constructed before these modern standards existed. That is why many of them could not withstand the intense movement of the ground. Along the northeast coast, engineers also discovered cracks in bridges and highways. For safety reasons, these roads were immediately closed for further inspection. A feeling of cautious relief spread through the capital. Official reports showed that only a small number of people were seriously injured. For a brief moment, it felt like the worst had passed. Then, without any warning, the ground shook again. A powerful aftershock rolled across the island. It was much stronger than experts had expected. The sudden movement shocked everyone and brought back fresh fear. On the northeast coast, the bridge that had shown a small crack the night before began to groan under the new stress. The sound echoed as the structure struggled. People held their breath. No one knew if the weakened bridge would survive another test. Taiwan, a land with a long history of earthquakes, was shaking once more. To understand why Taiwan remained strong during the 2025 earthquake, we need to look back in time. Taiwan experiences earthquakes often. This is because two massive tectonic plates meet beneath the island. When these plates push against each other, the ground shakes. In 1999, Taiwan was struck by a devastating earthquake known as the Chi-Chi earthquake. It was stronger than magnitude 7 and caused terrible destruction. More than 2,000 people lost their lives. Buildings collapsed. Roads split apart. Landslides buried villages. At that time, the country was not fully prepared for a disaster of this size. The Chi-Chi earthquake exposed serious weaknesses. Building designs were not strong enough. Emergency systems were slow. Communication was unclear. The disaster became a painful wake-up call for the entire nation. After 1999, Taiwan made deep and lasting changes. The government introduced much stricter building codes. New buildings had to meet higher safety standards. Older buildings were reinforced to make them stronger. Taiwan also built a world-class earthquake early warning system. This system can send alerts to mobile phones seconds before strong shaking begins, precious time that saves lives. Earthquake safety became part of daily life. People learned simple but powerful actions like drop, cover, and hold on. Schools, offices, and communities practiced these steps again and again. Over time, this created a culture of readiness. People did not panic, they knew what to do. Because of these changes, Taiwan was far better prepared in 2025. Although the earthquake was powerful, again around magnitude 7, the damage was much less than expected. The lesson was clear. Taiwan did not survive by chance. It survived because it learned from the past. And those hard lessons saved countless lives. Buildings strengthened after 1999 stood firm during the quake. The early warning system gave people precious seconds to protect themselves. But even with all this preparation, the 2025 earthquake brought a new kind of challenge. Taiwan had prepared for another disaster like the Chi-Chi earthquake. This time, however, the land reacted in a different and unexpected geological way. The shaking affected the ground differently than before. This new behavior created risks that planners had not fully expected. For the first time, Taiwan faced a danger it had not completely prepared for, one that could reduce the effectiveness of years of hard work. Hidden strengths. Despite this new challenge, Taiwan showed remarkable strength. One of its most powerful tools was the earthquake early warning system. In late December 2025, just moments before the strongest shaking began, mobile phones across the island buzzed at the same time. Emergency alerts from the Central Weather Administration appeared on screens, warning people to act immediately. Those few seconds made a real difference. In factories, workers rushed under strong tables. Others had just enough time to press emergency stop buttons on heavy machines, preventing serious damage and possible injuries. This system works because Taiwan has thousands of sensors across the island. Seismometers and GPS stations constantly monitor ground movement. They send real-time data within seconds, allowing warnings to be issued almost instantly. That speed saves lives. At the same time, the Central Emergency Operations Center became fully active. This center acts as the brain of disaster response. Information flowed in from every region, reports of damage, closed roads, power failures, and urgent rescue needs. Government agencies and local city teams worked side by side. They shared information, made decisions, and coordinated actions. Because of this teamwork, Taiwan responded with order, not panic. Another hidden strength came from ordinary people. Across the island, trained volunteer search and rescue teams stepped forward, ready to help their neighbors when it mattered most. These volunteers were trained for emergencies. They knew first aid. They knew how to search for missing people and help the injured. In the critical moments after the earthquake, they became the first line of support, often arriving before official rescue teams could reach every area. Local residents also helped one another. Communities quickly organized safe places for families whose homes were damaged. Neighbors checked on elderly people and those living alone. This strong sense of care and responsibility showed the true strength of Taiwan's people. These systems did not appear overnight. Taiwan has invested in them for many years. The country improved building rules, strengthened older structures, and taught earthquake safety to everyone. Schools and workplaces hold regular drills. People learn to drop, cover, and hold on until it becomes a natural habit. All of these efforts made Taiwan better prepared for a major disaster. Still, one serious concern remained. Taiwan is one of the world's most important producers of computer chips. These chips are essential for phones, cars, computers, and countless other products. After the earthquake, no one knew how badly these factories had been affected. Inside the most advanced chip plants in the world, automated systems began running careful safety checks. Engineers watched closely. The future of many global industries now depended on the results. Cracks in the armor. Although Taiwan handled the earthquake well, it also revealed hidden weaknesses, like small cracks in strong armor. The relief of survival slowly faded as new worries appeared. One major concern was the global economy. Even a small disruption at a chip factory can cause serious delays. If production stops for safety inspections, even for a few hours, it can slow supply chains around the world. Companies thousands of miles away may face shortages. Prices in global markets can change. The earthquake reminded the world how central Taiwan is to modern technology, and how quickly local problems can become global ones. The quake also showed that danger was not equal for everyone. People living in older buildings often suffered more damage. These structures were built before strict safety rules existed. They were weaker and less able to handle strong shaking. Many lower-income families live in these older homes. After the quake, they faced greater challenges, expensive repairs, unsafe living conditions, and fewer options to move to safer places. The earthquake tested Taiwan's systems, its economy, and its sense of fairness. It proved that preparation saves lives, but it also showed where more work is still needed. The earthquake revealed a painful truth. Natural disasters often hurt lower-income people the most. Their homes are usually weaker, and their path to recovery is much harder and slower. Life after the main quake was also difficult because the shaking did not stop. Aftershocks continued day after day. Some were small, but others were strong enough to bring fear back instantly. This constant movement kept people on edge. It was hard to relax. It was hard to feel safe at home, at school, or at work. Experts warned that this fear could last a long time. Many people experienced stress, sleep problems, and constant worry. Children and older adults were especially affected. Communities had to support one another, not only with food and shelter, but also with emotional care. The damage was not only physical, it was mental and emotional as well. While people tried to return to normal life, earthquake scientists watched closely. They studied how the powerful 7.0 quake moved energy deep underground. What they discovered was concerning. The earthquake had pushed stress onto another nearby fault line, one that was not well studied. Scientists knew very little about it. This raised a frightening question. What if the December quake was not the final event? What if it was only a warning? Could an even stronger earthquake come from this unknown fault? Lessons for the future. The December 2025 earthquake proved that Taiwan is strong. Its survival was not luck. It was the result of years of hard work and learning. The deadly 1999 Chi earthquake taught Taiwan important lessons. After that disaster, the country created strict building rules, built early warning systems, and taught people what to do during earthquakes. Because of this planning and fast action, many lives were saved in 2025. But the quake was also a warning. It showed that while Taiwan is prepared, it is not perfectly safe. Older buildings suffered more damage than modern ones. This proved that safety is not equal for everyone. Strong aftershocks caused ongoing fear. And the movement of stress to other fault lines showed that the danger was not completely over. Taiwan lives with earthquakes as a constant reality. Other earthquake-prone regions can learn from its experience. Strong building codes matter. Early warning systems save lives. Community cooperation makes recovery faster. Technology plays a key role in managing disasters. The most important lesson is this: earthquake safety is not a one-time achievement. It is a never-ending journey. Societies must continue to learn, adapt, and invest in safety, because the ground beneath us can move at any time. The earth will always move. Earthquakes will always happen. Because of this, people must always be prepared. Taiwan's story shows a long and ongoing struggle between human effort and the power of nature. It reminds us that safety is not something we achieve once and forget. It is something we must work on again and again, always preparing for the future. What happens in Taiwan also affects the rest of the world. Taiwan produces computer chips used in phones, cars, and many other products. Even a small problem there can slow down industries across the globe. This earthquake reminded everyone how closely connected our world has become. The quake also changed how people in Taiwan think about risk. Older generations remember past earthquakes and the pain they caused. For younger people, this event became a new and powerful memory. Together, these experiences shape how people think about safety, responsibility, and what they expect from their government. Many important questions are still unanswered. What will happen to families living in damaged homes? Will more money be invested to strengthen older buildings? How can safety be made fair for everyone? Taiwan showed great strength and preparation. But the road ahead still requires effort, learning, and action. Living in a dangerous world means never stopping the work of becoming safer. Now, we'd love to hear from you. What do you think is the most important lesson other countries can learn from Taiwan's earthquake experience?